The chamber's light refracted through crystal walls, painting the Dominion Council in pale gold. 12 species sat encircled beneath the imperial crest, their robes immaculate, their eyes bright with certainty. At the center, Chancellor Virel tapped one claw against the obsidian table. "So," he said, his voice amplified across the hall. 63 years of silence from Earth. No signals. No satellites. No power output. His lips curled in satisfaction. "I propose we finalize the record." Humanity, extinct. A murmur rippled through the delegates. The Zinari representative laughed first, his scaled crest flaring blue. "Primitive engines, brittle bones, no warp adaptation. A species of fossils," another added. "They believed in metal armor, kinetic shells, obsolete toys." The chamber filled with laughter, the kind that echoed against stone. Even the recorders in the high alcoves noted the moment as historical, the end of Sol. "Then it is decided," Virel declared. "Annexation begins at dawn. Their world will serve as a memorial, proof that resistance to progress is extinction." Beyond the chamber, fleets awaited the signal. 1,000 vessels formed the Council's expeditionary line, banners of every empire interwoven in a display of unity. They believed no opposition remained. "Transmit notice to all colonies," the Chancellor said. "We claim Sul in the name of enlightened order." Moments later, engines flared across void space. The invasion armada jumped in sequence, 1,024 ships breaking warp at Earth's coordinates. Their approach feeds displayed only clouds, old satellites, and one fractured orbital ring. "Empty," a captain reported. Sensors read derelict infrastructure. No thermal signatures, no power fields. "Proceed," Virel ordered. "Sweep the surface. Claim the relic." Below them, the planet turned slowly in silence. Aboard the lead Dreadnought, an aide hesitated. "Sir, there's—" "Noise under the ionosphere." "What kind of noise?" "Residual harmonics. Non-natural patterning. Old code. Artifacts," Virel dismissed. "Ignore them." He rose from his seat as the fleet descended into low orbit. Confident, composed, already imagining the speech he would give. Another victory. Another conquered myth. Across the command deck, the aide whispered to his console officer. "That signal, it's synchronized. 2 beats, pause, 3 beats again, like a transmission. Like a heartbeat." The clouds parted below. Static flared across every screen, unseen beneath the weather layer, deep in the Pacific Trench. Power grids long dormant began to rise from blackness. Reactors linked, aligning through oceanic cables older than any empire present. In the Council's chamber, far away data feeds from the expedition began to distort, frames freezing, telemetry desynchronizing. A final fragment flickered onto the main display, a blue-white signature blooming from Earth's night side. "Is that atmospheric discharge?" a delegate asked. "No," Virel replied quietly, leaning forward. "That's ignition." The feed cut to static. Beneath the clouds, the quiet ended. The Dominion fleet hung above the curve of Earth like a chain of suns. Engines burned against the black, their light mirrored on the oceans below. Orders rippled through encrypted bands. "Hail, demand, record, archive. Transmission complete," said the comms officer. No reply. Admiral Selvek leaned forward, mandibles clicking softly. "Repeat, universal channel all bands. Offer surrender and clemency. They may not understand the format." A pause. Static filled the air, empty and endless. "Still nothing," the officer said. "Primitive ghosts," muttered another. "Their signal towers have been dead for decades." On every vessel, displays scrolled through sensor data. Lifeless cities, corroded orbital debris, cold power readings. "Earth seems silent enough to believe the lie. Begin descent protocols," Selvek ordered. "Secure the ruins." At that moment, one screen flickered. Then another. The tactical overlay filled with faint blue pings, points of light where no satellites should exist. "Unknown contact pattern," said the sensor chief. "Elevation matches old orbital positions, but these—" "They're moving," Selvek frowned. "Define moving." "They're aligning, sir, forming a grid across the Terminator line. Each emits a narrow band burst, encrypted, decrypted, already attempting. It's recursive, adapting faster than our decoders can track. Across 1,024 ships, systems began to desynchronize. Navigation buffers stuttered, Targeting calibrations reset mid-cycle. The Admiral's own display pulsed once, twice, then stabilized. Origin, he demanded. Multiple. They're using derelict satellites. Repurposed debris, sir. Objects we logged as inactive. Selvek stared at the growing network. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate. Confirmed power source. Unknown. But the energy output is rising exponentially. 30 megawatts and climbing. He switched channels. Flag command. Report status. Interference across the grid, replied the fleet controller. Sensors cycling out of sync. Some ships report their auto-aim protocols rewriting themselves. Rewriting? Yes, Admiral. Like someone is patching the firmware in real time. The comms officer flinched as the primary hail channel opened again, this time on its own. Every speaker on every bridge carried the same sound. 3 tones, a pause, 3 more, repeated in perfect rhythm. Identify that, Selvek said quietly. It's not language, replied the tech. It's calibration code. They're aligning vectors, not speaking. On the main screen, orbital debris rotated into symmetrical positions, creating a grid across the planet's night hemisphere. Lines of faint light connected them. Laser synchronization pulses painting invisible corridors over the atmosphere. What are they building? The captain whispered. Not building, Selvek said. Activating. The satellite's signals merged into one carrier wave, a frequency dense enough to disrupt communications fleet-wide. The Admiral's console dimmed as the system rerouted around the interference. Admiral, the signal's source is triangulated, the sensor chief said. Deep ocean coordinates, latitude 31 north, 145 west. Pacific Trench again. Selvek exhaled through clenched teeth. So they left us a grave to find. The carrier wave intensified. Power readings spiked across orbital layers. For the first time, the Dominion fleet's sensors detected warmth, rising from the planet's depths, threading upward through cloud cover. Selvek turned toward the viewport, his reflection swallowed by the growing glow below. They hear us, he murmured. They just choose not to answer. The fleet's comms panels went dark. Then, one by one, the satellites locked into perfect alignment. A heartbeat echoed through the static. The order came without hesitation. Fire. 1,000 lances of pure plasma carved across orbit, converging on the blue sphere below. The atmosphere flared white. Clouds shredded into spirals of vapor. For 10 long seconds, the void was filled with light. Direct impact confirmed, said the sensor chief aboard the Dominion flagship. Target saturation achieved. Surface temperature exceeding. He stopped mid-sentence. No, recalibrating. That can't be right. On the main display, the energy signatures didn't disperse. They bent. Each beam curved downward, then arced sideways, wrapping across the planet's magnetic field like threads pulled taut. Containment feedback? Selvek asked. Negative, sir. The energy's being stored. Stored where? Within the impact field. It's resonating, like armor plating, not atmosphere. The lances dimmed. The glare faded. What remained was silence, and below it, something glowing faintly beneath the cloud cover, rings of white light spiraling outward from specific points on the surface. Heat dissipation is minimal, the chief whispered. Absorption rate, 98%. Someone laughed nervously. Impossible. That's theoretical. Then the remaining 2% re-emerged. From the planet's night side, thin filaments of energy lanced upward, silent. Perfectly parallel, moving faster than sensors could timestamp. The beams didn't scatter into space. They curved back, following the same angles as the original assault. Every Dominion ship that had fired first became a target. Return fire detected. Source, the atmosphere itself. Impact. The first cruiser vanished in a bloom of molten alloy. The second followed, its containment fields collapsing as redirected plasma poured through its own firing conduits. Who authorized counterfire? No one, sir! Its reflection, precise to 2 decimal points. One by one, the fleet's front line went dark. Sensors failed to isolate trajectories. The attack mirrored their own targeting matrices. What they sent was what they received. Selvek gripped the console rail. Cease fire! All ships, cease fire! Too late. The feedback arcs propagated across the formation like living lightning. 143 vessels vaporized before power could be rerouted. Static filled the comms net, followed by voices breaking through. My port arrays just turned inward. My ship's cooking itself. Backup relays gone. Containment collapse in 30 seconds. Command. It's rewriting our firing solutions. Then, silence again. The flagship's sensors steadied, showing a pattern of glowing wrecks encircling the planet, metal skeletons drifting in synchronous orbit. How many lost? Selvek asked. 217 confirmed, 300 disabled. And the source? Still unknown. Whatever absorbed that energy, it's awake now. Across the fleet, officers stared at their displays. Radiation levels normalized. Electromagnetic interference cleared. And through the static, a single harmonic pulse rose again. 2 beats. Pause. 3 beats. Selvek recognized it instantly. The same cadence as before. "Admiral," said the sensor chief, voice thin. "Signal origin confirmed. Surface grid nodes. They're communicating through our damaged telemetry." The Admiral turned toward the viewport. The planet below shimmered faintly, its oceans reflecting an unseen geometry. "Tell me we at least wounded them." "No record of atmospheric breach, sir. 0 casualties. 0 structural loss." The comnet remained open. Hundreds of officers whispered disbelief. Plasma reflection at 98% efficiency. Energy. Feedback routed through our own targeting. They used our fire to calibrate their defense grid. Selvek exhaled slowly. "Then humanity didn't die," he said. It learned. The fleet floated in silence, surrounded by its own wreckage. As Earth's surface lights began to pulse in rhythm, slow, deliberate, answering their attack with calm precision. For 6 minutes, nothing moved. Wrecks drifted in orbit, molten and silent, while the remaining Dominion ships struggled to reorient. Then, beneath the thinning clouds, the ocean split. A column of light erupted from the Pacific Trench, blue-white, threaded with magnetic arcs. 1 became 2, then 10, then 67. The grid ignited in sequence, each pulse synchronized to the same double-beat rhythm the fleet had ignored. "Contacts," the sensor chief shouted. "Multiple ascents, velocity rising past Mach 15, Mach 20, Mach 27 equivalent in vacuum." The Admiral's eyes widened. "That's impossible at orbital transition. They'd tear apart." "They aren't tearing apart," the chief whispered. "They're accelerating. 67 objects pierced the clouds like spears. Holes black as obsidian, edges rimmed in plasma. No energy signatures, only kinetic burn. Their trajectories bent gravity itself, slingshotting around the planet with flawless precision. Formation analysis?" Selvek demanded. "Unknown patterning. Every ship's vector updates mid-flight. They're rewriting the tracking thresholds faster than we can recalculate." Across the Dominion command network, targeting reticles jumped erratically. Predictive AIs lagged by entire seconds, a lifetime in combat. The first Terran Dreadnought crossed the battlespace. It didn't fire. It moved. Mach 27, whispered the helm officer. Relative displacement. 200 kilometers, in under a heartbeat. The Dominion cruisers tried to adapt, shifting into defensive grids. They couldn't lock on. Each time a human ship changed course, its wake erased the data behind it. Sensor ghosts flickering where physics said no object could exist. Then the first collision happened. Not a ramming strike, an intention. The Terran vessel passed within 2 kilometers of a destroyer. The resulting inertial shear ripped the alien ship in half without contact, like paper under a blade of wind. "Confirmed kinetic distortion," reported the analyst. "Space-time compression field, localized, not weaponized. They're using inertia as armor." A murmur spread across command decks. Numbers scrolled too fast to read. Impact projections turned meaningless. The Dominion fleet's formation collapsed under its own confusion. On the lead, Terran Dreadnought, internal sensors stabilized. Deep within its bridge, human voices spoke with clipped precision. Targets acquired. Maintain distance protocols. Acceleration lock holds. Mach 27 constant. Authorization, doctrine of response. Tier 1, no emotion. No triumph, only process. From the Dominion flagship, Selvek watched helplessly as his ships disintegrated. Some colliding, others spinning off trajectory as their inertial dampers failed to compensate. The humans still hadn't fired. "Find me their propulsion model," he barked. "How are they exceeding relativity thresholds?" "Unknown drive type," came the strained reply. "It's not warp, not slipspace. It's pure thrust. Every atom of the hull is a vector engine. Across the holographic map, 67 Terran icons began to spread, forming geometric arcs around the Dominion line. They're surrounding us, said the sensor chief. But it's not a battle formation. It's mathematical. Mathematical? Yes, sir. They're building a containment lattice out of motion. Every Dominion sensor feed collapsed at once. The tracking grid went dark. Artificial gravity fluctuated as the human's kinetic wake distorted local spacetime. Admiral, our instruments just inverted. What does that mean? It means the void thinks it's full. Outside, light twisted. The Terran ships vanished, not cloaked, but hidden behind their own velocity. Only their wake lines remained, glowing faintly against the stars. A single transmission cut through the static. A voice, flat and human. Engagement parameters achieved. Prepare for kinetic judgment. The fleet's comms fractured. Signal loss spread across the entire formation. Selvig turned toward his crew, face pale under the holographic glare. They're not attacking, he said softly. They're teaching us how small we are. In the void beyond, space folded into silence, and the doctrine began. The Dominion fleet was still reeling when the countdown began. No warning, no signal. Only numbers, flashing across the surviving ship's data channels, synchronized to the same steady rhythm. 312. 311, 310. Who's transmitting that? Selvig demanded. Unknown origin, replied his comms officer. But every vessel's receiving it. Same packet signature from all directions. Before he could respond, the stars changed. 67 Terran Dreadnoughts broke orbit together, each leaving a luminous scar across the void. No comm chatter, no formation callouts, just perfect silent coordination. Mach 27 velocity holds, reported a Dominion analyst. Vector patterns converging. Wait, they're not converging. They're aiming. The first tungsten rod detached from a human launch rack. 10 meters long, inert, unremarkable metal. It vanished from tracking at once. 3 seconds later, an enemy cruiser disintegrated. No explosion, just a flash of white plasma as the rod struck at a fractional light second per second squared. Impact registered, said the sensor chief numbly. Relative energy, 2,000 megatons. Confirm, it's verified. They're using raw mass as a weapon. 67 ships fired in sequence, then again faster. Overlapping trajectories until the sky itself seemed to fold. Each tungsten dart burned invisible until it met alloy, and then every hit marked a grave. Count the losses, Selvig whispered. 900 in the first minute. Maintain defensive alignment. Impossible, Admiral. They're striking faster than our systems can log hits. Outside, the Dominion formation fragmented. Rows of cruisers sliced apart before maneuvering orders could execute. Kinetic trails glowed white against black, a rain of annihilation too clean for sound, impact after impact. 9,200 ships. Some captains tried to retreat, firing jump drives mid-combat. The rods reached them before they could finish spooling. Their drives imploded, blooming into silent spheres of light that lasted less than a heartbeat. 312 seconds elapsed, the analyst murmured. That's all it took. Verify casualties. Confirmed, Admiral. 9,200 ships destroyed or crippled. 67 confirmed aggressors. None damaged. The bridge fell silent. Only the hum of power relays filled the void. Open their channels, Selvig said softly. Maybe they'll speak now. No one responded. On every surviving ship, external feeds replayed the same thing. Precise telemetry of each strike, time-stamped, labeled, archived. The humans were recording their own onslaught, for evidence, not spectacle. The Dominion networks received a final packet. No voice, no text. Only a timestamp and a simple phrase rendered in their own language. Cease aggression. Evacuate civilians. Selvig stared at it, unmoving. They'll offer mercy? The comms officer swallowed. After 9,000 ships? After everything, Selvig said. His hands trembled, not from fear but from something colder, comprehension. They hadn't been fighting barbarians. They'd been measured, judged, and answered with precision. He looked out at the wreck field. Glowing embers marked what once was an empire's pride. Between them, the Terran Dreadnoughts drifted in perfect stillness, hulls reflecting the light of burning debris. Signal record intact? Yes, sir. Every impact logged through our own sensors. Transmit it, Selvig ordered. All channels. Let the galaxy see. As his aides complied, the last Dominion recorder caught the Terran fleet turning slowly toward the sun. Their engines didn't flare. They shimmered, bending light, erasing themselves from view. The final frame before blackout showed 67 human ships aligned bow to star. Formation perfect, silent as judgment itself. Then the feed went dark. In the aftermath, the void went still. No more tungsten flashes, no more target locks. Just wreckage, drifting quietly between fragments of shattered fleets. The Dominion survivors waited for the next strike that never came. On board the Terran Dreadnought TNS Aegis, command lights dimmed to blue. Inside the bridge, every crew member sat motionless, awaiting confirmation. "Strike phase complete," said the operations officer. "Target grid neutralized. Awaiting further orders." The voice of Fleet Command came through the line. Calm, precise, unmistakably human. "Ceasefire. Maintain orbit. Medical protocols priority 1. Across all 67 Terran vessels. Weapon bays sealed. Launch cradles retracted. Reactor output shifted to humanitarian support systems. Field generators. Shuttle deployment. Radiation shielding." In the Dominion flagship, silence felt heavier than the battle itself. "Why did they stop?" whispered Selvek. "We've no defense left." "Maybe they ran out of ammunition," muttered a bridge officer. Selvek shook his head. "No one who fires that precisely runs out of anything." The comms officer blinked at her console. "Admiral, there's an incoming transmission. It's not directed at us, it's omnidirectional." She routed it to the main display. A Terran voice, genderless, emotionless, filled the cabin. "Civilians of all nations, evacuate through the designated safe vectors. We will not hinder your departure. Medical assistance is available. Do not resist." Coordinates filled every active screen. Orbital corridors cleared of debris, paths aligned away from Earth, marked by stabilized gravitational wells. Selvek stood frozen. "They're guiding our survivors out." "Admiral, if we follow those routes, we live," he said quietly. "They're offering life," the same message repeated across the entire sector. Dominion survivors whispered the word none of them expected to hear. Mercy. For the first time in centuries of conquest, that word carried weight. It spread through encrypted comms faster than any order, faster than any weapon. Fleets stopped running diagnostics. Rescue vessels rerouted their power to evacuation bays. Even automated drones changed course to join the corridors. On the Aegis, Commander Rana looked to her captain. "They'll see this broadcast, sir." "Every world. That's the point," the captain replied. "Show them what power is for." He turned toward the viewing port. The stars reflected in his eyes, burning debris, broken ships, and the thin blue curve of Earth below. "Reactor status?" "Stable, secondary power grid online. Med ships preparing deployment. Good. Begin retrieval of ejected pods." "Offer triage." "No discrimination. Sir, Dominion vessels are armed." "Some may— Protocol stands." The captain's voice cut clean through the air. "We treat before we judge." Beyond the ship, Terran recovery drones fanned out in geometric arcs. Thousands of escape pods lit up on their sensors, tiny, fragile bubbles of heat and air. One by one, tractor beams locked on. In the Dominion sector net, disbelief turned to confusion, confusion to awe. The same vessels that had annihilated them in 312 seconds were now retrieving their wounded. Selvek's aides stared at the feed. "They destroy without hate. Help without favor. What kind of war is this?" "The last one will fight," Selvek said softly. On every frequency, one phrase repeated, encrypted, decoded, and whispered again. Mercy doctrine confirmed. Human broadcasts continued for hours, calm and unwavering, until even the static of ruined ships quieted in response. The galaxy watched as humanity's silence reshaped the definition of victory. Across the fractured front, light shimmered where no ships had been. At first, Dominion sensors read it as residual static. Afterglow from tungsten strikes, magnetic distortions from vaporized hulls. Then the pattern stabilized, spreading across the star map in perfect alignment. "Multiple new signatures," said the fleet sensor chief. "Locations, everywhere. Outer colonies, trade lanes, even neutral sectors. How many? Selvek asked, his voice barely audible. 20 full formations, Admiral. Roughly 4,000 additional vessels. Selvek's blood chilled. Decloak pattern? Simultaneous. All Terran. On every display across the Dominion network, Terran ships appeared from nothing, sleek silhouettes fading into view like shadows becoming solid. No warp jump signatures, no heat spikes. They had been there all along. Pull their transponders, Selvek ordered. Already done.
They've been stationary for decades.
We thought they were civilian relays. The Admiral leaned forward, watching the holographic map redraw itself. Each new Terran formation encircled populated systems, not military targets, but colonies filled with civilians. Evacuation routes the humans had broadcast now overlapped precisely with their hidden fleets. They've been guarding us, Selvek whispered. Across the galactic net, a flood of intercepted transmissions confirmed it. Outer colonies reported massive Terran vessels emerging from the void, projecting protective shields around evacuation convoys. Civilian transports, Dominion, Council, even Pirate, passed unharmed through Terran space. They're enforcing humanitarian corridors, said the analyst. Their defense grid spans 9 sectors, 20 million evacuees within protected zones. Protected from whom? Asked a junior officer. From us, Selvek said. The realization struck with the weight of gravity itself. Every action, every strike, every silence, it had never been reactionary. It was planned. Humanity had built not a war machine, but a perimeter around compassion. On board the TNS Aegis, command feeds linked with new fleets across the grid. Tactical overlays flickered green as units confirmed synchronization. Grid link established, reported the comm officer. All 20 formations holding defensive posture. Civilian extraction at 52% completion. The captain nodded. Maintain position, we defend. We do not advance. The bridge was silent, but for the hum of data. They'll see it now, said Commander Rana. They already do, the captain replied. Let them understand what readiness means. In the Dominion capital, the surviving council delegates stared at intercepted footage. Terran fleets formed luminous corridors through dust and ruin, ships drifting in slow arcs around refugee convoys. Their signal headers carried no demands, only a symbol, an open circle enclosing a single line. What does it mean? Asked the Zenari envoy. Continuity, said a human voice from the feed. Protection that does not require permission. Every encrypted Dominion channel carried fragments of those same words, spread across sectors like quiet scripture. Continuity. Civilians first. Weapons silent. Selvek stood on the observation deck of his wounded ship, watching hundreds of transports thread safely through Terran lines. His aide joined him, eyes wide. They could have destroyed us all, the aide whispered. They could have, Selvek agreed. Instead, they built this. Far across the stars, Terran formations formed constellations of light, each orbiting a colony world once thought abandoned. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood the pattern that had gone unnoticed. Earth's ships had been here long before the war began. Invisible guardians waiting for the day they were needed. Admiral, said the sensor chief, they're transmitting one last data pulse. Destination, every known archive. Content, a full record of today's battle. Losses, orders, ceasefire codes. Unedited. Selvek closed his eyes. Truth as their weapon. In the stillness that followed, Dominion crews lowered their banners. Civilian ships turned toward the safe vectors, and across the network of stars, the word spread like light across dark water. Humanity hadn't prepared for conquest, it had prepared for mercy. They came from the core at dawn. The so-called Coalition of Order, a desperate alliance of fleets, answering the Dominion's broken distress calls. 27,000 ships, all engines burning. All captains convinced mercy was disguise for exhaustion. On board the TNS Aegis. Alarms whispered across the bridge. Multiple warp signatures, said the sensor officer. Inbound from 5 vectors. Estimated strength, 27000 vessels. Commander Rana glanced toward the captain. They think we're wounded. We are not, he replied calmly. Hold defensive grid. No preemptive fire. Across the void, the coalition deployed in fan formation. Countless gunship arrays lit up the dark, plasma, ion, fusion, every weapon civilization had ever invented. Their lead admiral's transmission echoed across all open channels. Terran vessels, surrender your occupied sectors. Cease interference with lawful Dominion traffic. Failure to comply will result in sterilization fire. No reply came. Only the soft hum of Terran drives, the stillness of a fleet that did not need to threaten. Range closing, said the OPS officer. Outer coalition line preparing to engage. The captain stood. Mark the time. Begin recording. Doctrine of restraint, Tier 2. At 0 hour, the coalition opened fire. Tens of thousands of energy lances converged. The vacuum burned white. Inside Terran vessels, kinetic shields shimmered, absorbing the storm with the same cold efficiency as before. Energy dispersion, 96%. Redirected output, 4%. Channeled into the void, harmless. Minimal heat gain, Rana reported. Shields stable. Return message, the captain said. Final warning. He spoke only 8 words. Cease aggression. You are firing into mercy. They didn't listen. At 00:47 minutes, Terran fleets moved. No explosions, no fury. Just motion. Calculated arcs, velocity thresholds met to the microsecond. Kinetic pulses burst outward, invisible shockwaves disabling drives and weapons simultaneously. In 1 hour, 4,000 ships drifted dead in space. In 14,000. At the 6th hour mark, the last coalition cruiser powered down, its engines frozen mid-burn. Confirmed, reported the analyst. Total hostiles disabled, 27,000. Confirmed fatalities, under 1%. Transmit evacuation instructions, the captain said. Sir. After this? Yes. We give them corridors home. Across the sector, human medships redeployed again, calm, unwavering. The same ships that had unleashed tungsten judgment now emitted soft blue guidance beacons. Tugs maneuvered wrecked coalition vessels into stable drift, preventing debris collisions. In the command nets of the defeated fleets, disbelief turned to silence. Pilots stared at their dead consoles, systems offline yet hulls intact. Every weapon array had been cut, not destroyed. Every core shut down as if commanded by their own computers. Admiral, whispered Selvig from his crippled bridge, now orbiting under Terran protection. They could end everything in a blink. And they choose not to, his aide said. He watched as human ships passed like shadows over the battlefield, tracing clean geometries through debris fields, not one weapon hot. Transmission logs from the Aegis flooded every comms channel, 6 hours of footage, every strike recorded and labeled, showing exactly how restraint replaced annihilation. The galaxy would see it. A single Terran statement followed the footage, carried on subspace frequencies impossible to jam. Mercy is not weakness. It is mastery. Across broken fleets and ruined capitals, commanders lowered their weapons. The word repeated, translated, analyzed, feared, and finally understood. On the bridge of the Aegis, Rana exhaled. All hostiles neutralized. No pursuit required, the captain nodded once. Then we hold the line. Not for conquest, for witness. Outside, the last of the plasma storms faded. Only the glow of disabled ships remained. Thousands of silent shapes drifting beneath Terran watch. A field of submission lit by quiet order. 6 hours. 27,000 ships. Zero vengeance. Only precision. Only mercy. The tribunals were held in silence. No banners, no emblems, no ceremony. Only light, white even, mercilessly clear. Captured admirals stood within transparent barriers, each surrounded by the soft hum of translation fields. The air aboard the TNS Concorde was sterile, the atmosphere of a place designed not for vengeance, but for truth. Record begins, said the human arbiter. His uniform bore no rank insignia, only the emblem of the open circle, the same mark seen across every Terran broadcast. You are charged not with defeat, but with cruelty. You will answer and be heard. Admiral Selvig watched from the observation deck. He had surrendered voluntarily after the last engagement. He alone had been invited to witness the proceedings, not as a prisoner, but as a participant in what the Terrans called restoration. The first Dominion admiral refused to speak. The second shouted that mercy was hypocrisy. The third wept when presented with visual logs, civilians used as shields, hospitals targeted during their retreat. Each image was accompanied by unedited timestamp data compiled by Terran ships during the war. Every atrocity preserved, no exaggeration required. The Arbiter's tone never changed. Do you deny this record? Silence. Then you will serve your people by admitting truth. Only then will your world rebuild. Verdicts were rendered not by execution, but by return. Each guilty fleet commander was assigned to repatriation convoys to guide their surviving civilians back through the same corridors humanity had created. Their punishment was endurance, not death. Selvig turned to the attending officer. You could rule the galaxy after this. Why don't you? The officer's eyes didn't move from the proceedings. Rule implies fear. We prefer stability. Beyond the tribunal, a live broadcast spread across the core. The Dominion Council, once the symbol of order, stood fragmented. Delegates resigned en masse, their crests and sigils stripped from the central dais. In their place, Terran observers watched quietly, never intervening, never celebrating. Within a week, entire empires began drafting new accords. Former rivals signed non-aggression treaties under Terran oversight. Some called it occupation. Others called it conscience across the galactic network. Citizens shared the same phrase from human broadcasts. Justice is mercy, performed with discipline. On the Concord's lower deck, 1,000 Dominion captains waited for assignment. Human medics treated the wounded without distinction. Engineers repaired their ships. The act itself, service without condition, spread faster than any decree. Selvig approached the human arbiter. What happens when we all comply? When there's nothing left to punish? The arbiter regarded him evenly. Then you will govern yourselves. That is the point. Outside the viewport, Terran fleets held position around liberated sectors. They did not occupy. They did not patrol. They observed. Where once stood the Council's proud insignia, now hung only the quiet. Steady glow of navigation beacons, pathways open, unguarded. The galaxy watched in disbelief as power shifted. Not through conquest, but through restraint. Every world that had once feared humanity now mirrored its law. Selvig looked back at the tribunal, where a human judge placed a simple tablet before the next prisoner, an image of a world rebuilding. This is your sentence, the arbiter said. To repair what you destroyed, the feed ended. Across 100 systems, silence held. In that stillness, something irreversible took shape. Fear of humanity turned to reverence, and reverence to reform. Selvig whispered to no one, You didn't win a war. You rewrote what victory means. Outside, Terran ships drifted in perfect balance between stars, engines cold, purpose complete. At the edge of known space, where even the starlight thinned to nothing, an old relay stirred. It had been dead for 10,000 years, buried beneath cosmic dust and forgotten catalogs. Then one pulse, a second, 3 more. The same cadence Earth had used. 2 beats, pause, 3 beats. On the bridge of the TNS Aegis, deep scan telemetry flared red. Signal detected, reported the sensor chief. Origin, beyond the Persian expanse. Roughly 1.3 million light minutes past mapped frontier, Commander Rana frowned. Is it one of ours? Negative. Frequency resonance matches our recall codes, but inverted. It's answering. The captain rose slowly. Around him, the bridge lights dimmed to operations gray. The noise of engines fell away, until only the soft ticking of data relays remained. Put it on main, he said. The holographic display unfolded. A waveform stretched across the void, its amplitude too regular for randomness. Behind it, the faint ghost of an artificial lattice appeared. Massive, symmetrical, and alive. Exterminator-class architecture, whispered the analyst. Ancient but functional. Estimated mass, 3 lunar units. Reactivation chain already propagating. Rana looked to the captain. How many? Too many to count, said the chief quietly. Each pulse mirrors our own. They're not signaling distress. They're answering a call. A silence settled over the deck. The same word passed between every human officer, though no one spoke it aloud. Response. On the outer screens, Terran fleets shifted. The 20 hidden formations that had once guarded the colonies began to realign, leaving orbit one by one. Human ships turned their bows away from the core, facing the dark beyond the rim. Across the galactic network, observers watched the movement in awe and fear. "Are they leaving?" asked one Dominion newscaster, her voice shaking. Selvig, now part of the Provisional Restoration Council, answered calmly. "No, they're preparing. Humanity never leaves." Inside the Aegis, the captain studied the long-range data feeds. The exterminator lattice pulsed again, stronger, closer. Each flash synchronized to the Terran recall beacon, like two heartbeats testing one another. "Fleet Command," he said quietly. "Confirm readiness." All sectors responding. 67 primary dreadnoughts, 20 support formations. Doctrine grid online. Any hostile activity detected? Negative. The lattice is dormant. For now. The captain's gaze stayed fixed on the holographic rim. "Then we wait." "Same as before," Rana's voice was low. "You think they'll come this far?" "They always do," he said. "Every civilization thinks itself eternal until something older remembers its work." Outside the viewport, the stars ahead seemed to dim. Terran ships formed a slow arc across the rim, aligning into a pattern that mirrored the planetary grid once used to defend Earth. "Formation integrity confirmed," said the helm officer. "Kinetic drives idle. All weapons cold," the captain nodded. "Maintain silence. Let them see we are not afraid." He stood there a long moment, the reflection of his ship's insignia shimmering in the glass, an open circle enclosing a single line. "History repeats," Rana murmured. "Only if you don't learn," he replied. In the black beyond, the exterminator signal shifted frequency, its tone deepening until it resonated through the hull. The ship trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what waited. "Transmission complete," the comms officer said. "They know we're watching." "Good," said the captain. "Then they'll understand mercy applies to predators too." Fleet Command confirmed final synchronization. Across the void, human ships turned toward the abyss, engines whispering alive again, and as the galaxy held its breath, the last Terran transmission echoed into deep space, calm, unwavering, absolute. "We are awake."